This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit of Nebraska football here on College Football Addiction. I've got Adam Carriker from the Carriker Chronicles, the BIG10 show. He's on the radio there in Lincoln as well. Adam, thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
I'm glorious, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to get a bold prediction, a hot take, whatever you want to call it here in a minute, but let's back up just a little bit. If you had one word to describe just the mood in Lincoln, the mood around the fan base, what is it right now?
I would say excitement. And it's crazy, man, because there's been excitement for years. If you'd given me two words, I would have said legit optimism. But I was only given one word, so I chose excitement. I could have just chose optimism. But like at the end of last year, okay, Nebraska just has to win one of their last four games. They, unfortunately, if you're a Nebraska fan, lose all four, don't go to a bowl game. Okay, they're the only team in the country that hasn't been to a bowl game since 2016. Only Power 4 team in the country hasn't been to a bowl game since 2016. And so they end up not winning a single game. They don't go to a bowl game again. And I remember the day after Black Friday, the day after the Iowa game, just sitting here thinking as I transport myself back, just how in the blue hell am I going to get myself excited for Nebraska football next year other than I always get excited for college football, Nebraska football, BIG10 football. But beyond that, how's that going to happen? And throughout the offseason, I get to sit with Matt Rhule in his office, and I chatted with him for 45 minutes the day before the spring game. And I get to be around the program a little bit and sit in on some D-line meetings and things of that nature. And you just watch. And one example I'll give is Rhule talked about how he sat down with Osborne and he's tried to pick Osborne's brain. Like, how did you have success here? How did you win here? Okay. Like, for 42 straight years, Nebraska never won less than 9 games. Now, all of a sudden, they haven't been to a bowl game since 2016. How do we flip this back? And one of the things Osborne talked about, because they'd have 180 guys on the roster, is reps in practice and having multiple groups going in practice. And I go to the practice later that same day. They got 3 different full team stations going. You got inside run over here. You got 7-on-7 pass skelly. You got blitz drill over here. And everybody's getting reps. Nobody's standing around. They got a little half field, turf field behind me where they're doing one-on-ones with O-line, D-line. And it's just like when you watch what they're doing, when you listen to Rhule, he's taken the time to educate himself on Nebraska. He clearly has done this before. And it's just a feel of like legitimacy coming from inside the program. And when you're around it, it's hard not to buy into it. And I was skeptical. I was like, how am I legit going to get excited beyond just being excited for football in general? And I can honestly say he's doing it in a way that I wish it would have been done in the past. Okay. And not trying to take shots at anybody. It just kind of is what it is, my thought process. And I'm actually more legit optimistic and more legit excited for this season. The first 7 games of the schedule helps with that because it's very, very generous. Than I have been in a long time, probably since the Akron game and it got canceled due to lightning and Scott Frost's first game. Probably since then, honestly.
Yeah. I didn't have this in my notes, but just hearing you talk about it kind of made me remember, like, obviously we had the Jimbo years and I, FSU guy. And then there were some really good times there, including a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not trying to minimize that, but it does kind of remind me of, Bowden was here for 40 years and they didn't miss a bowl. I mean, they didn't have 9 wins every single year, but they had quite a streak. And 2 guys that went up against each other in Bowden and in the 90s. And I know that he poured into Mike Norvell now, and it was bad, right? We missed a bowl the first couple of years under Norvell, really close that second year outside of the pandemic. Everybody likes to say year 0, but his year 1 really was the global pandemic, and so some similarities there. I feel like with Bowden kind of pouring into Norvell some, and him having some of those conversations, and then Florida State has turned it around. I'm not saying Florida State's back. I mean, their fans won't tell you they're back until they win a national title, but. Kind of some parallels there that, and I do, as an outsider, as somebody who enjoyed the 90s stuff, but, has just wanted Nebraska to be better because it's fun. Their fan base is amazing. They're passionate, and it's cool to see, I don't think anybody in the world would look at Nebraska right now and say like, no, they're trending the right way. And does he get them back to 40 straight years of 9 wins? I don't know. But I do think that everybody thinks, this is going in the right direction, so it's kind of fun to see the parallels there.
I think college football is better when teams like Florida State are on the upswing and they're doing good things. Teams like Nebraska, Miami, I'm hoping Cristobal can get them back to where they believe they should be. USC, like when some of those recognizable name brands are doing well, I think it's better for the sport as a whole. And actually, Florida State was one of my favorite teams growing up. I remember every year, Miami, Florida State, Florida, always top 2 or 3, top 5 matchups. And wasn't there a stretch late 90s, early 2000s where it was like 7 or 8 years that Florida State finished the year consecutively ranked in the top 5 or something crazy like that?
I think it was 89 through it was like I think it was shoot, it might have been more than that. I think it was like 14 straight years.
Even longer. Yep.
Yeah,
Very
it's
impressive.
insane to like think back about that. That is, I mean, that just would never happen. I've even looked it up like to find it, and like Saban's best was like 6 years. Kirby's not done it with frequency enough. I mean, they're kind of newer on their upswing, but I don't know if that'll ever be done again with the playoff. 14 straight years is insane. And how many more playoffs would they have been in if or how many more titles could they potentially have if there would have been a 4 team playoff? So, all right, 7.5 wins is the Vegas over under. You said we'll talk about the schedule here in a minute, but pretty friendly setup with the way things get kicked off. Considering, on one hand, considering they haven't been to a bowl since 2016, you said, would 8 wins make the fan base happy, or are they expecting more? Is any fan base happy with just 8 wins? But, is it some kind of a measured happiness, or where's the fan base really want to get this year?
I think 8 wins would thrill Husker fans. Okay. We haven't even won our first game of the year since 2019. Now, in fairness, this year, UTEP at home, the first game of the year, is going to be the first time since 2019 we haven't played a Big Ten in-conference opponent on the road week 1. I think Husker fans, like the bare minimum, I do think this year, and I've sat across from Matt Rhule when he looked at me and he said, hey, if we don't win 6 games this year, we got real problems. So I do think Husker fans would not be thrilled, but they'd be like, it'd be acceptable to go 6-6 and go to a bowl game. But I do think there is some expectations of 7-5, maybe 8-4. If you want to get crazy, 9-3, who knows what could happen? It is college football. But to me, I think 8-4 would definitely make Husker fans very, very happy, considering, recent struggles.
Michael Vick at BetUS.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
So let's talk a little quarterback. Obviously, Raiola there, Harburg there. Whose team is this?
Well, so funny thing is, no starter has been named yet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. This is you're here to break the news.
But if it's not Dylan Raiola, I think I'd fall over backwards in this chair, and I don't think I'd be alone in that. Like, I think it's pretty much everyone believes he's going to be the starter. A lot of the fans were able to go to, a lot of the media were able to go to an open practice this past weekend, and Raiola looked good. I mean, he looked really good. The ball comes out of his hand. Different is what I kept hearing from a lot of people, and I can see why they would say that. He is absolutely the projected starter. People believe that this is his team. Heinrich Harburg looks like the backup quarterback right now. I will say this, the guy can do a lot of different things. There's been times they've talked about moving him to tight end over the years. And last year, I mean, he ran the ball with not only deceptive speed, but insane veracity, a violence to the way he runs. So I wonder if he could have kind of a little bit of a Taysom Hill, Swiss Army knife effect on this offense. Potentially. But yeah, I do believe that even though we technically do not have a starting quarterback yet, I think everybody under God's hot sun pretty much assumes it's Dylan Raiola.
And we'll talk about the schedule in a minute, but I think the way the schedule sets itself up, if you played in Ohio State on the road week 1, maybe you do want to have the more vet guy starting out, and then you kind of pass the reins along or see how that goes. But man, I think with the way the schedule sets up, he can make some mistakes early and probably be fine. He can be a true freshman at times. Now a 5-star, number 1 quarterback, true freshman, it helps. But it feels like it sets up well for him. But his ceiling in 3 years is to be the number 1 pick in the draft. But what's his ceiling for this year?
Well, I mean, his ceiling is when we talk about ceiling and floor, that's a lot of variance. I think I would stick with expectations. My expectations for him are to take care of the ball and complete at least 60% of his passes. More is great. You're a true freshman. I'll take 60% at least, if not more. We did not have anywhere near close to that a year ago. I believe it was 51% of the passes were completed by the quarterback room as a whole. Throw more touchdowns and interceptions. Again, that was not the case a year ago. And just take care of the little things, do the basic things, run the offense efficiently, keep the chains moving. Okay. Just hit guys that are open. We had issues last year with snaps hitting guys that were in motion and things of that nature. And so for me, I think the expectation is to run the offense efficiently, knowing he's a true freshman, knowing there's a huge level of unpredictability when you're starting a teenager at quarterback, especially in the Big 10 conference, but to take care of the ball at a much, much improved level from a year ago. And I think the biggest thing for Husker fans is just finding a way to win close games. When you lose as many close games, more than any other team in the country, okay, over the past 7 years, and it's not even close. I'm tired of spewing the numbers. It's not even close. If you can just find a way to win some of these close games, that would be absolutely huge in the eyes of Husker fans.
Pretty awful injury news yesterday with the left tackle going down. Is that your biggest concern for the year? Do you have other concerns that obviously starting a true freshman, we kind of talked about that, but is it offensive line depth? Is it injury to a premier position like that, or is there something else that kind of concerns you as well?
I think especially when you're going to start a true freshman, there's a lot of excitement there, a lot of reason for optimism. There's some unpredictability, but one of the things that you can do to help a true freshman is up front, is by getting a run game going with a solid offensive line or protecting him in pass protection, okay, when he is dropping back to throw the ball. So I start with the offensive line. This is an offensive line that has well over 100 combined starts throughout their careers, okay? You look at Bryce Benhart, he's tied for the most career starts in Nebraska football history as an offensive tackle. He's going to break that record. Stay healthy, my man. And he'll probably shatter that record by the time this season is over. You look at Ben Scott, he started at Arizona State. Now he started going on his second straight year here at the University of Nebraska. Obviously, Teddy Prohaska goes down, unfortunately, with a knee injury. But right behind him is Turner Corcoran, who is one of the most highly sought-after tackles in the entire country coming out of high school. He's had some ups and downs in his career here at Nebraska. But he has started, I swear to God, he's been starting for 94 straight years here at Nebraska, or he's been in that rotation. So you've got all this experience. You got Micah Mazuka, who started at Baylor, then started at Florida. And if he starts here at Nebraska, that'd be his third Power 4 school. So you got all sorts of experience up front. We've got to find some sort of level of consistency. The run blocking was much better last year. The pass protection still struggled, and we need to patch up some of those holes up front. So when you lose a guy like Teddy Prohaska, Henry Latowski, probably the strongest offensive lineman, is going to be out a few weeks. Hopefully he can come back ready to go for week 1, week 2 at the latest. You do get a little bit concerned about the depth, but it's finding a way to help your talented, inexperienced, teenage, true freshman quarterback as much as you can by providing a running game, which starts up front, and protecting him in the pass game, which starts up front.
Defensively, how do you think Nebraska will do compared to last year? I know we've broken down some positions on offense, but for sake of time, just your big picture thoughts on Nebraska's defense this year.
So they finished 11th in the country, which is a pretty big jump considering they were around 100th the year before. So Tony White did a phenomenal job in year 1 bringing in that 3-3-5 defense. You got returners up front, Ty Robinson, Nash Hupmaker, defensive end, nose tackle. You got Jamari Butler. Basically, the entire 2 deep on the D-line is pretty much coming back. Okay, Tommy Hill starting at corner. The other corner spot's probably the biggest question mark with Bly Hill getting hurt at the end of spring. Okay, Zaire Wright transfers from USC. Not only did he start 15 games for the Trojans, but he was in the last Space Jam movie. That's got to count for something. And so, to me, they can be really, really good. The biggest difference is trying to force more turnovers than they did a year ago and help this offense as it's trying to find its way in the 2024 football season.
All right, so I didn't spring this on you. I gave you a little heads up. What's your hot take or your bold prediction, or if they overachieve? What's your bold prediction for Nebraska football 2024?
Oh man, my bold prediction is that they would end up ranked. And for a school that hasn't been to a bowl game in 2016, everything we've talked about, hasn't had a winning season, et cetera, in quite a while, to end up ranked in year 2 under Matt Rhule with the true freshman quarterback, I think that's It's fairly bold in my opinion. I have their final record at 8-4. And if you're a team in the Big 12 or ACC, and I know you talk a lot of conference realignment, those conferences are not as strong right now, week in and week out, as the Big 10 and the SEC. And I say that with all due respect. I played in the Big 12 back in the day when I played for the Huskers. So for me, if you can finish 9-3 in the Big 10 SEC, depending on who you are and who you beat and how your season went, you might be in the college football playoff conversation, which means you're darn near a top 12 team, if not in it. So if you're sitting around 8-4, which is what I predict the Huskers to be at the end of this year, it's very realistic to be a top 25 team potentially.
Yeah, and if they can get that 9th win somehow, then yeah, you're anywhere from 13-20, and if there's enough chaos, maybe they're talking about you. But yeah, no, I like it. I appreciate you taking a little time. Where can people follow you? Where can they find more of your work?
Yeah, so the Carriker Chronicles, you can follow me on X at Adam Carriker 94, on Facebook at The Real Adam Carriker. I finally resurrected my Instagram account. It's been basically dead for 7 years. I'm about 7-8 years ago, I wasn't very crazy about posting on social media, things of that nature. And I've taken a big break this summer due to the family and I'm moving. But now I do it all the time. I didn't want an Instagram account. My marketing guy, Doug, at the time, made me have it. And all the posts were basically from him because I'm like, I'm not doing it. And so when Doug and I parted ways years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on Facebook and X now. But my wife looked at me. She's like, you're missing an entire audience over there. All right. So I resurrected Instagram and I posted my first post in 7 years a while back. So Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, also CarrikerChronicles.com. We got our own website as well. We went from 6 content contributors at this time last year up to 25 now. So it's growing quickly. So CarrikerChronicles.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure to link the YouTube. We appreciate you for taking some time and chatting, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.